Welcome. Thank you for joining us. I hope you're having a great week. And I want to let you know that we are recording this webinar as always. Today, we're going to be talking to SuAnne Anderson from Vancouver Public Schools in Washington. She's going to take us through their Scribbles journey. Throughout the presentation, please notice that at the bottom of the screen, there's going to be some interesting facts. So definitely check those out. And let's see. Yes, I already said we are going to be recording this and it will be posted to our YouTube channel. So, okay, we can go ahead and get started. SuAnne, welcome and thank you for sharing today. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining. Yeah, how is it in Washington right now?
Today it's beautiful. This weekend, possible snow. So we have a big switch coming in our weather. Today is supposed to be about 78 and it's supposed to be 20 degrees colder tomorrow. And then over the weekend, we have a chance of snowflakes. So
Wow, that's
yeah.
wild. That's wild. You haven't taken out all your spring clothes. You haven't packed away your winter and taken out all your summer and spring yet. No?
We haven't done that yet. No, we are planning a trip in a few weeks though to Vegas because it's just a straight 80 degrees there. So I'm looking forward to packing shorts and tank tops and yeah.
In one type of clothes, not layers.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for joining us today. I do have some questions for you. So are you ready to get started?
I am.
Okay, so let's start with just tell us about yourself and your current role at Vancouver Public Schools.
So currently I'm the records manager. I promoted into this position about this time last year. Officially, it was like last week was my 1-year mark in this position. Prior to this, I was the records clerk. So I was the person that was sending out all the records. Now I am in charge of how records are retained and destroyed in our district.
Okay. So your process before, what did it look like before you started using Scribbles and now with Scribbles? What changes have there been?
I was kind of a mess before actually, because we have a centralized records department, meaning that we have one person that sends records to other districts for our entire district. So we have about 40 schools and the enrollment clerks don't send any records from the schools. It's all sent from a central location, but they would be contacted on a regular basis because other districts don't know how we structure things. So most of the time what would happen is a request would go to a school in our district and then the clerk would have to forward that onto the records department to the clerk so that the records could be sent out. It was convoluted and oftentimes things got misplaced or they would think they sent it and they hadn't. Also, other districts wouldn't understand that the records would be coming from somebody else. So they oftentimes wouldn't open the email and they would think that they hadn't received them. So.
Okay. And so then when you always had the centralized location, but then when you started using Scribbles, how did it change?
With Scribbles, it makes it a lot nicer because they understand where to go. It doesn't matter if they think they're contacting a school or not. Either way, it's coming to the records clerk. So when they do a request, oftentimes they think that they're requesting it from the clerk in the school, but the process is the same. So there's no forwarding to be done. Nothing different happens on our end. Our records clerk looks at all of the requests that come in and she sends all the records out. And then of course, with them going through Scribbles, the other district is looking for an email from Scribbles, from Scribsoft. And then, or Scrib order, that's Scrib order, isn't it?
Yes.
So it cuts down on the amount of confusion basically. Awesome. And it's way easier for us to manage because there's no forwarding, and our clerks love it because they don't have to send out records and forward things on. And
yeah, that was my next question. I was going to say, I was going to ask, what does your staff think? I mean, what would they say if we were to ask them what they thought?
So they love the fact that they don't have to send out records. They love that they don't have to communicate with schools because it frees them up to do other things in their school that they're in. But it was a hard transition because other districts, especially around here, nobody's heard of Scribbles. And at first there was a lot of pushback from other districts. So there was a lot of communicating to be done. And basically, for the most part, I had told them to just forward all those people onto me, and I kind of have a spiel, and I let them know why we're doing it, why it affects us. And I had quite a few people that on the phone, they would start out telling me how ridiculous it was, and by the end they would go, oh, well, maybe we should be looking at something like that.
Yeah.
So
I've actually had the same conversations, but it kind of does open your eyes to the fact that one, it's a lot easier. Can school districts make generate revenue from it, and also it's secure. And right now, with all the data and privacy concerns, it definitely helps with that.
yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing about your staff. What about the implementation process of, because a lot of people, we've also heard, we don't have time for that. We don't have time to, change it up or try something new. But what is the implementation process of kind of onboarding, getting your team or you up and running?
It actually was pretty easy for us because we have a centralized records. At the time that I started this, there was no new records clerk yet. I had moved over into my new position. I was kind of covering two jobs. So I got to be the one to get it up and running. I got to work out the kinks. I got to, communicate with people and figure out, how the staff in the schools were going to be, how they were going to treat each request and things along those lines, how we knew, because that was the biggest thing for us to hurdle was the clerks and the staff need to know when there's a request for a student in their school. So we worked out all those kinks and we were up and running. And really, it wasn't that bad. It was, I would say there was, maybe we started April 1st. And from April 1st through the end of the school year, there was a lot of changes and a lot of working things out. But by the time we came back after summer, it was done. I brought them all back in for a training at the beginning of this year, and I was able to cover everything from beginning to end and explain to them, how we were going to notify them, what their role was, and it's run pretty smoothly this year. It's been good.
That's great. And you said you brought everybody back in April. So that means you were probably working remotely for at least part of that time. Were you able to get the work done anywhere
So
remote?
unfortunately, we were not working remotely by that time. We were called back to work, I want to say August the year before. So we had some clerks that were working remotely because of health conditions and things along those lines. But for the most part, everybody here was back in a building. So unfortunately, I missed all the working remotely and getting records out and all that. And that was kind of a bummer because it would have been a lot easier. However,
Okay.
there was other things that you guys implemented during that time frame when I was working remotely that helped immensely, though. I mean, there was some, that's one of the reasons that I decided to move forward with the Scrib transfer, was because we were already using Scrib Order, and you had already put some things into place that made it so much nicer to get records out, that I felt very secure going this route.
That was actually my next
Oh,
question.
I'm getting
You
ahead.
are reading my mind today. So I was going to ask you what items you brought forward as reasons to work with Scribble. So you said
Oh.
that there were things that made it much easier. Were you part of the decision-making process, or like how did that work with reasons to go with Scribbles?
During the time that when everything was shut down and we were working remotely, Scribbles was doing Thursday webinars where you could log on for 20 minutes and see different products and see updates that you guys were doing and things like that. So I was doing that every week. I was getting on, I was watching those webinars, and not only learning about things that I could do with the system that we already had, but learning about the other things that you had implemented, other modules you had, things along those lines. And I really liked this idea, mainly because it makes it nice and easy for people to do a request and us to see it, and it gets rid of all the human error in it, not transferring things and people not opening emails and all the communication issues that came with the way we transferred records. So when I learned about this, I started taking notes, and I went back and I talked with somebody there, although now I can't tell you who it was, but I talked with somebody and I got some more information about it. And I brought it to our CIO, the Chief Information Officer. And so she's my ultimate boss. And when I brought it to her, the two main things that I brought up were, first of all, the ease of making a request and how much simpler it would be, and it would take the clerks out. And anything we can do to make work easier for the clerks is our ultimate goal. There's a lot of work to be done in schools, and anything that we can pull from their desk just makes their job a little bit easier. So that's always a motivator. And then the second thing was FERPA. So we don't have, or we didn't have, a secure email at that time. Everything we were sending out was via email. So nothing was secure, and obviously not FERPA compliant. And that was the other big issue. And then the cost was so nominal. We actually don't recoup costs. We don't charge for anything in our district. So our students don't pay for records, and neither do legal entities or anybody else that requests records. But the
Really?
yeah, we don't charge for anything. The CIO feels that it would be a hardship for most of our students if they had to pay. So she's made it so that it's just free across the board. The only charge that is incurred is the one that Scribbles places on, like legal requests have that, and government requests, things along those lines. They have that $4 charge. But I did a cost comparison prior to bringing it to her attention, and we would have broke even. We would have, over a 6-month period of time, our average was right around $500. So, we're a district of about 23,000 students. And with the requests that we currently were receiving at that time, we would have broke even. So just kind of a nice cost comparison. It pays for itself if you need it to. But
Absolutely.
yeah, she didn't feel that it was, basically, she said that if we needed $500 a month that bad, that there was, for a district our size, that there would be something wrong. So she wasn't willing to make that change, but she didn't even bat an eye. She was like, yeah, get this going. Let's get it done. So
Time is money too, right? So
exactly.
yeah. So I think what we can, I know we want to see the footnote on this one, but we kind of just went through the key decision makers on the board, or the,
Oh,
how you, but yeah, let's see. You processed more than 4,000 records through Scrib Order in 2021. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
right. So keep checking out our footnotes here. Emma is driving our presentation right now. So Emma, we'll go to the next one because I feel like we have exhausted that question. So at this time last year, before using Scribbles, what would be happening? Or I know you said you came on in April with that, but what would be happening, or what would the team be struggling with?
The biggest issue at any given time for us was just getting all of the requests to the centralized records department, to the records clerk, and actually getting records out so that people understood that they were coming. It was a constant battle. We were always getting second and third requests for things that had already been done. I'd have to resend that email to districts, and in capital letters in the subject line would say, here's your records again. you know, so that was the biggest thing. It just such a time waster of clerks getting second and third requests, and thinking that it hadn't been done yet, and just a lot of miscommunication basically. So
Okay,
this
great. I'm glad that's helped. I'm glad that a year ago you can look back, or even longer than that now, you can say, wow, things have really changed and we have a better process. Have you ever had to reach out for questions to our support team, and how has that gone?
I reach out all the time. I always have questions. I always have requests. Everything has been answered right away. I've made changes to our website. I've changed wording on things. I've asked for requests that had previously been denied to be reopened again, so we could approach it from a different direction. Everything is always done right away. I've always been super happy with the customer service. Again, that was one of the things, when I'm looking for a company that I'm going to deal with, that's one of the things that I definitely look for, because if I can't get a hold of anybody, I have no reason to add more contact with that. So I've always appreciated your guys' customer service is spot on.
And do you use the chat? Do you use the chat, or do you use the support tickets, like the email?
It depends. I've used both, but generally speaking, I use the chat.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Everybody loves to be in the chat. Our support team loves working the chat because they can have the little emojis and the GIFs, and they have
yeah,
fun.
exactly.
Well, I'm glad it's working out for you. So I don't think we have another question, but I do want to ask you if you had advice for anybody that's watching, like just like you had been watching a long time ago, kind of gaining some more understanding and insight into what Scribbles has to offer. Like, what piece of advice would you offer?
Just, for the most part, be open to technology, because that has been the biggest thing. Like if you can add anywhere that you can add technology to your day, if you learn how to use it correctly, it'll definitely save you time. And this is one of those products where it's been super nice for that. It's also nice, one thing you didn't ask and one thing I didn't talk about, but one of the things that I really appreciate about Scribbles the most is you can look back to the beginning of time, to the beginning of when we started using the program. You can see the requests that have been made for a certain student. You can tell where they came from. You can tell the action you took. Every single piece of information, every communication with that other district is all in there. And that is one of the most helpful things for looking back at anything that comes in. If there's a problem later on, you can look back and you can see exactly what happened during that time frame.
Right. We call that an audit trail.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, and I used it too. And I used to work at a school district. Just we would use it for choice and enrollment, and being able to see when you communicated with the family, when they opened the methods, if they responded, things like it really does make a difference, and it really does help
Yes.
give some clarity around certain situations that can be kind of messy. So
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's
absolutely.
been very helpful.
SuAnne, this has been so helpful, and we really appreciate your time and your expertise, and of course your partnership. So thank you for sharing your Scribbles story with us today.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Thanks. And thank you all for joining us to hear more about Vancouver Public Schools. And as a reminder, this has been recorded. We'll post it on our YouTube channel, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Take care, and thank you for joining.
Bye-bye.
Bye.